Hi there, club members, and welcome to this week's Lunch and Learn. And because we're in June and many of you will be coming into your next edition of the My Awesome Diary, the July to December edition, I thought I'd go through a few steps on how I use my diary and hints from other people as well, so you can utilize your awesome diary so it really benefits you in terms of getting all the tasks done and being super productive and managing your time well. Now, as you know, my awesome diary was designed by myself. After all the many years I've spent on the reception desk, I knew what I wanted out of a diary. And so here are a few features around my awesome diary if you haven't been exposed to it before. Number one, it has all of the public holidays for every state throughout Australia. It also has all of the school term dates for each of the states. Now you'll see for every day there's going to be a little quote, and that quote lasts for the whole week, because having a new quote every single day, a new thought, a new insight every single day, it's just too much for you to try to implement. And so having one for the whole week, it gives you a whole week to see if it resonates with you and hopefully have it inspire you. This one, for example, is I will devote 2 hours a week learning a new skill. Can you imagine how much more we'd know by the end of the year if we learned a new skill every single week? It's 52 new skills to learn. My goodness. You'll also see that every day has 2 pages. The left-hand page is your timeline throughout the day, and your right-hand page is a list of all the tasks you need to get through that day with little check boxes beside and a section for notes underneath. But in terms of how you populate your diary days is going to be dependent on you and how your mind thinks. And then if we turn to the Sunday of every week, you'll see there's a particular considerations. For example, this one, poor attitudes in dental practices are not uncommon. Despite implementing systems and processes that support a customer-centric style of service, practices can still experience poor team member behaviour. Common examples of apathetic, negative behaviour that I see in our consulting work or that are reported to me are unhelpful response to patient requests or queries, sitting around when there's other jobs to be done, ignoring or avoiding other team members who may appreciate some assistance, walking over rubbish instead of picking it up and discarding it. However, team members who have a servant mindset exhibit behaviours that are primarily in service to others' needs, not their own. Servant mindset characteristics are enthusiasm, helpfulness, actively searches for ways to assist patients and colleagues, strong listening skills, high awareness of others, and generosity. Team members with a servant mindset are the ones who become known for their great service. And if you've got a dental practice that is in the process of hiring somebody new, think about the kind of characteristics that may work very well in your practice and include those as prerequisites in your advertising campaign for a new staff member. And then on the opposing side to the Sunday, there is just a section for notes. Quite often we come across links or quotations or ideas that we want to hang on to, and we think, oh yeah, it's such a brilliant idea, I'll remember that, but we never do. The process of writing something down helps us in a couple of ways. Number one, when we are writing something down, it leaves a stronger impression on our brain, so we're more likely to recall it later on. The second way writing something down helps us is we can refer back to it days, weeks, months after the fact. And just by reading what we've written, we all of a sudden remember what we were thinking when we wrote that. And the third way it helps is if you keep all of your My Awesome Diaries, then you have got all the history there of the great ideas that you can reflect back on at any point in time in the future. The other thing you'll find is at the end of every month, there is a page for the agenda items for the upcoming staff meeting. So as you are moving through the month and you think of, or somebody else thinks of an agenda item for the upcoming meeting, you simply write it in there. Then by the time the staff meeting comes around, you go straight to this page and all of the agenda items are already there waiting. During the meeting, you will be discussing what each team member needs to do for the coming month. There might be things that you specifically need to do as a receptionist, and that's what the right side of this is, my to-do list from the staff meetings. So you can start working on those ideas straight away, and if you forget to through the month, you can go back and have a look and remind yourself what your to-do list was. So when the next team meeting comes up, you can say, look at that, I've got all my bits and pieces done. Don't we love doing that? Now, the reason why the My Awesome Diary is just A5 size is because I have come across many reception desks over the years, and some of them are quite small and very crowded for space. So an A4 diary just simply wouldn't be practical, hence the A5 size diary. And the reason why it only goes for 6 months is because this is how thick it is already. If it was for a whole year, it would be this thick. Way too thick, again, not all that practical. And if you love using My Awesome Diary like I do, very tactile, you will also love the optional leather case. It's a lovely cowhide, soft leather. It's got room for a few notes, room for your pen, and your diary just fits in there. So you just keep replacing it as each 6-month period goes by and each new edition of My Awesome Diary comes out. The other thing that My Awesome Diary comes with are the little 3M tabs, post-it note tabs. Magnificent. So they're the ones where you can write something of note up the very top and pop it to the side of important pages so you don't lose information that's important. So here we go. This is how I suggest you use My Awesome Diary. So now, first of all, for effective task management, I suggest you use 2 things. One, the physical diary, My Awesome Diary, and the second thing is an online calendar such as a Google Calendar. Now, I know many of you use an appointment book called the miscellaneous or reception appointment book to remind you to get some tasks done during the day, but a lot of your stuff at reception is really just pertinent to you. So leave the dental software calendar day only for things that the whole team need to be made aware of. Everything else that's just you goes into your My Awesome Diary or into your online calendar. This is also going to be a way of turfing the to-do list so you never have a to-do list again. Now, as a receptionist, you've got things coming at you left, right and centre. And remember my priority list that I give you, a 3-step priority list. The very top thing that you need to always be making sure that you're looking after is the person right in front of you. Whether it's a patient that you're taking the payment from or a patient over the phone, they are your top priority. Everything else gets left to the side until that job is done. The very second priority, if there's not a patient right in front of you, is the operation of the day. And so making sure that you do have all those patients confirmed, making sure if there were any patients that needed to be moved up or down, we're going to be running a little bit late, can you come in a bit earlier? All of those phone calls have been made. Maybe there's a few OPGs that need to be attached to patient files who are coming in today. That has to happen straight away as well. And always keeping an eye on the clock. Are the practitioners running on time? Do I need to put my head in there, see if they're running late so I can warn upcoming patients that running a little bit late? Is the next patient arriving for their next appointment time? And so that is your priority number 2, the operations of the day. And then after the patients have been managed, priority number 1, all of the operations of the day have been managed, priority number 2, then you can get to priority number 3, which is everything else. So everything else then goes through the Eisenhower Matrix. And you'll see up here on the screen the Eisenhower Matrix. And it was developed by President Eisenhower from the US. And this is how it works. You can see in dental terms, Quadrant 1, that upper left-hand quadrant there, Quadrant 1 are all the urgent and important things. Quadrant number 2, the things that are important but not urgent. Quadrant number 3 are the things that are not urgent, also not important. And quadrant number 4 are all the urgent things that aren't necessarily important. And passing all of your tasks through this Eisenhower Matrix will allow you to prioritize all of your tasks and therefore your time efficiently. So all of the quadrant 1 stuff, the urgent and important stuff, that needs to be done right now. But when you're consistently being interrupted by the telephone and patients coming in and out of the practice, how often is it that we forget that really urgent and important stuff? And it's the urgent and important stuff that goes into my awesome diary. So there is a reminder to take the bins out, a reminder to get my confirmations done, ring Sally at 10 o'clock, move her appointment time down, attach the OPG, do a TLC phone call on the extraction patient from yesterday. So quadrant 1 stuff, urgent and important, goes into the diary. The second quadrant, the not urgent and important stuff, that's stuff that you can schedule a time to do it later. So certainly it's important, such as the recalls. I have to do the recalls this week. That's important. Is it urgent that I do it right now? Should it take priority over all of the other daily stuff that I'm trying to get done to make sure that the flow of the day happens nicely? No, it can be done today, this afternoon, tomorrow. And so yes, it's important, but it is not urgent. I'm going to schedule a time to do it, and that's where your Google Calendar comes into play, your online calendar. So you are actually selecting a future time to get that done. If you wrote recalls down in your My Awesome Diary, the minute you change days, then all of a sudden that message is in the past and you'd have to rewrite it again the current day. So we're going to avoid that. We're going to avoid constantly rewriting the same task to do over and over again into coming days, coming days, coming days. We're going to schedule a time for it in the Google Calendar. Now we're going to swing past quadrant 3 at the moment, go to quadrant 4. Quadrant 4 are those things that are urgent but not necessarily important, and so you can delegate them away if they're things that you don't have to do yourself. They also go into the My Awesome Diary, and I'll show you how to identify them as quadrant 4 items in just a moment. And then quadrant 3 are the things that aren't urgent and are not important. These are the things that you will often find if you do keep a to-do list. You are carrying them over from to-do list to to-do list to to-do list. They're still there a month later, 2 months later, and you're sick and tired of seeing them. And quite often you will find those items, you can turf them off that list. You can not schedule it, not pop it in your My Awesome Diary, and it's not going to be any big deal when they don't get done. So you could even have a bit of a rule for yourself like I do. If I've got a task in my Google Calendar and I'm dragging it from one day to the next for anything longer than 2 weeks, I dump it. I get brave and dump it. Okay, we've gone through the 3 priorities at reception. Priority number 1, the patient right in front of you, either in person or on the phone. Priority number 2, the operations of the day. And only once those 2 things are done can you go to priority number 3, which is all of the other stuff. All the other stuff gets passed through the Eisenhower Matrix and either goes into your online calendar or into your My Awesome Diary. Now let's have a look how to use that. Okay, so the very first thing you do when you get the My Awesome Diary is get your tabs. Label one of them as today. So that just moves from day to day and you can instantly go through today anytime. The next one is agenda, and pop that straight into the first agenda list for the upcoming staff meeting. Then hang on to these tabs because you're going to need them moving forward. When there are special pages that you want to reflect back on, just put tabs in those special days so you can go back to that particular day and remind yourself things that you wanted to follow up on at a later date or something inspirational that you might want to read again. Now you might find that your diary ends up with a whole bunch of stuff. I've got fabrics here, cards, a receipt. I've got folded pieces of paper within the diary itself. That one's on body modifications. What can employers mandate of their employees in terms of piercings and tattoos? I've stapled in important business cards to pertinent days as well. And I come straight through to today. It's a pretty clear day today. But the way I would use this as a receptionist is every morning after the morning huddle, go back over the previous days and bring forward anything that wasn't done that is of high importance. and bring that into today. Always keep in mind, when you are putting aside tasks for yourself in your Google Calendar or your online diary, make sure you remember that if you are in charge of answering the phones and seeing patients in and out with payments, you can wipe out about 70% of your day, because your day will also be spent emailing specialists, making sure OPGs are loaded, all the rest of the stuff. Don't overload your day, and be aware of how much time all the other patient support stuff, how long all that does take. So what you want at the start of every day is 1, 2, or 3 important things that you want to try to get to today, so that you can bring them in from your Google Calendar and tackle those things. Depending on how complex they are, how much time they'll take, you may only have one major thing to try to get through today, or it could be 2 or 3. Try not to go over 3. You will likely not have enough time. You'll also have taken your My Awesome Diary to the morning huddle as well. And if there are any TLC phone calls to make, any OPGs to attack, you'll be making notes for yourself in the My Awesome Diary. And then you go to the front desk and you start your day. You start making sure that all of the patients are turning up for their appointment time and the surgeries are off and rolling. And then you can start tackling the things in your day. As patients call in and they've got a toothache, they've got a broken tooth or whatever, a new patient, as that patient is talking to you over the phone, write their details down in the My Awesome Diary to remember them. We always have to keep in mind, as receptionists, our work is constantly being interrupted. And we think in the moment, of course I'll remember that name, of course I'll remember the symptoms of that toothache, but then the time comes to writing the actual notes, you're like, oh, I forgot, what was that all about? And so just making the briefest of notes in your My Awesome Diary can bring your memory back to it. It's just extraordinary how many times I have thought, oh gosh, that's so important, I will not forget that. But then I do. But if the times I've written it down, I'm like, oh my God, that's right, I haven't followed that thing up yet. And it was so important when I was speaking to that person on the phone. The other way to use the My Awesome Diary through the general running of the day is, you might be on the phone when a practitioner brings down a patient to the reception desk. They want to be able to tell you, I just need to see this patient for an hour next time, but they can't interrupt your phone call. And goodness knows, writing things on random bits of paper, they get lost and the sense of importance goes down the minute that random piece of paper has got something else drifting over the top of it, such as My Awesome Diary. So get all of your practitioners in the habit of writing little notes for you in your My Awesome Diary. So you're on the phone, here's the pen, and you move and you twist the diary around to them. So that's giving them permission to write down what that next appointment time needs to be, what brochure that you need to print off and hand over to the patient. They've got their job done. They haven't interrupted your phone call. The patient has seen that clear transfer of information, and then you pick up that ball and run with it once you're off the phone. It makes for very efficient and respectful teamwork. Now, the other thing that I've noticed with my note taking is that I've always traditionally been a very messy note taker, and it was never really a pleasurable experience going back over previous notes. I would look at the state of my book and I'd think, oh my God, they just look so messy. Why would I even want to look at it? So something I've discovered over the past few months is visual notes. And visual notes is when you maybe add a little bit of color. Maybe some mind mapping, some visual cues, making the page a little bit more interesting to both note down on and to reflect back on. This was a busy day with lots of notes, but because it's broken up with arrows, dividing lines, a bit of highlighting, colour, I am more inclined to read through those notes and make sure I haven't forgotten anything important to do when I go back over my days. And I promise you, going back over my notes that I've written really does bring my mind back to the mindset I had when I wrote the note down. The amount of thought and memory that comes back to me at those times is really quite extraordinary, to the point where the minute it's important, even if I think to myself, there's no way I'll forget this, I write it straight down, because there's been so many times in the past that I've forgotten all about it. Every now and again you might come across a quote or a link a patient says, or you should really go to this website, and you think, gosh, that is a really compelling thing to me. It's resonating with me right now. Those again are the things to write down. There was something by a man, Eisenhower Matrix, that I really loved. So I wrote the whole thing down because it really resonated with me at the time, and I knew I wanted to keep a top of mind awareness moving forward. So I write it down so I can reflect back on that every now and again. And if it resonates with me today, maybe I'd like to see it again in a year. And you can, because of course, as you go, you just keep all of your My Awesome Diaries from the past, and you keep all of your notes. And so at any point in time, I can reflect back and remind myself what was important, what quotes really resonated with me, what sort of work have I managed to get through after all of these months and years. And the previous diaries all stack up quite nicely and tidily. They don't take up a lot of room. But then you've got this very clear snapshot, and it's very interesting reading back over your notes and the things that you found interesting in times gone by. And it's amazing how much you do forget, the little events that you do forget. Now, as I said, all of the Quadrant 1 stuff, the stuff that's both urgent and important, goes into the My Awesome Diary, but I also said Quadrant 4 stuff does as well. And that's the stuff that's really urgent, but it's not so important that you do it. Somebody else could do it as well. And that's where highlighters can come into play. If you are finding you are noting certain things down that can certainly be done by another receptionist or another staff member if they're running a little bit early and they've popped out to see if they can do anything to help, you can write down, attach OPG to Sally Field's file. It doesn't need to be done by you, but it does need to be done today and urgently. And so then highlight that one item, and when people have got a few moments to spare and they've got time to do something for you, you can just quickly glance at your My Awesome Diary and see in a heartbeat the things that could be delegated to other staff members. So My Awesome Diary can really help you get all of your tasks done throughout every day and help you better manage your time. And as I say, visual note taking has really made a difference to me. I did a bit of research into it. People are very visually inclined, and they say that understanding of information, ability to process it, is so much better when it's actually a visual picture rather than just words on a page. For years and years and years, my pen of choice was this, a simple Bic pen. I liked the fine tip. It always had to be black, and the cap always needs to be at the end of the pen. It creates a little bit more weight at the end, which helped me write more clearly. But now that I'm a visual note taker, I've got this. I've got highlighters. I've got textures that also have a paintbrush. I have a multiple of different colors and nibs. And I tell you, it is making it more interesting to fill my pages up with important notes, and it's a much more pleasurable experience to go back over previous pages to make sure all my bits and pieces are being looked after. And so the visual note side of things, I really encourage you to start practicing. Get hints online. There are so many images under Google Images, different ways to display fonts, little simple images, banners for information, different ways of doing arrows as well. There are so many things that you can do to make your notes much more appealing. So at the end of every 6-month period, you have completed 6 months worth of work, but it's also 6 months filled of ideas, insights, things you wanted to get done. The monthly meeting to-do list are all the things that you found so important you wanted to write it down to make sure you got it done. If you've got ideas on marketing, feedback from patients, ideas on how to grow the practice, ideas on how to make the patient experience better, and personal self-awareness stuff for you as well. If you came across a YouTube video that really spoke to your heart, write the URL down in your diary so you've always got access to it. If you would like a copy of the My Awesome Diary and the optional leather cover, it's just in the products page on the Julie Parker PracticeSuccess.com website. Our degree of efficiency and productivity can be enormously influenced by the tools at our fingertips. As a dental receptionist, My Awesome Diary, together with the Google Calendar, was the absolute best way I found to get all of the tasks done that I needed to get done in a very timely fashion. I wish you the very best with it. Now, because we're at the end of June and we've got July just around the corner, it is the start of a fresh financial year. And just like the start of a calendar year, it is a magnificent time to establish goals for the coming year, or make sure that you are achieving the goals that you set for yourself as of January 1. And so this month of July coming up within the club, the next 4 lunch and learns are all going to be about goals. And to kick you off on that, the JPPS podcast episode that's just been released has JPPS co-founder Charles Kovess, who's also Australasia's passion provocateur, talking about goals. And so there's a link in this lesson to that episode, so have a listen to that, and then let's get started for July being a big month of goals, goal setting and goal achievement, and recognizing what stops us from getting where we want to go. So have a fantastic week. Until next time, I look forward to seeing you then. See ya.